Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something quite extraordinary, a collection of documents, information revealed through legal means that, well, according to our sources, carry some really profound implications for public health, for trust.
Absolutely. We're talking about the Pfizer Papers. Some are even calling them a smoking gun.
Right, hinting at a story that might be very different from what many of us were told. These aren't just, dry reports.
No, not at all. They seem to represent a significant moment in understanding the events of the past few years.
Definitely. So for this deep dive, our mission really is to unpack these revelations. We want to connect the dots, help you understand the crucial findings, and try to do it without getting lost in the sheer volume of paper.
That's a lot to sift through.
It is. So we'll explore what Pfizer allegedly knew when they knew it and, what the implications might be for all of us.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this, maybe we should start with how these papers even came out. How did we get access?
Good point. Where did they come from?
Well, it started with a Freedom of Information Act request,
Right.
FOIA, followed with the FDA over in the States.
Okay.
But initially, Pfizer and the FDA, they apparently sought to keep these papers under wraps for 75 years.
75 years.
No.
Wow. That's almost a lifetime.
It is. It certainly raises questions. But thankfully, a judge didn't agree with that timeline.
Right. So the judge stepped in.
Yeah, rejected the 75-year plan. Instead of the FDA's proposed, I think it was 500 pages a month, the judge ordered 55,000 pages per month.
55,000. That's a huge difference.
Massive. It meant the full set, around 450,000 pages, became public relatively quickly, all things considered.
Okay, so the documents start flowing out, and this is where Dr. Naomi Wolf comes into the picture.
Exactly. Dr. Wolf, she's a longstanding journalist, Rhodes Scholar, feminist author. She kind of found herself involved after, in June 2021, she reported being removed from some major social media platforms.
And that was linked to her reporting, wasn't it?
Yes. Apparently, it followed her reporting on women's own accounts, eyewitness accounts of menstrual problems after the mRNA injection. She noted her own biography was sort of changed overnight online from Oxford scholar to conspiracy theorist.
That's quite a shift in description.
It is. So recognizing these documents were highly technical, 450,000 pages, there was a fear they'd just get buried or ignored.
Lost to history, essentially.
Precisely. So Dr. Wolf, with encouragement from others, she mobilized this incredible citizen science effort. About 3,500 doctors and scientists from around the world.
3,500. Wow.
Yeah, working pro bono, unpaid, for 2.5 years, just digging through all this highly technical material.
That's a massive undertaking. What came out of that huge effort?
Well, it resulted in 105 detailed reports, and 50 of those were compiled into a book. The key thing is they link their conclusions directly back to the primary Pfizer documents.
So it's all sourced back to the original papers.
Exactly. And the project points out that apparently Pfizer hasn't issued any cease and desist letters in those 2.5 years, which they suggest implies the reported information is accurate.
Okay, so let's get into those core allegations then. What did Pfizer reportedly know? And maybe just as importantly, when? Let's start with efficacy.
Right. The big question: did it work as advertised? The analysis of these documents points to something pretty surprising. Pfizer allegedly knew by November 2020.
November 2020, that's just 1 month into the public rollout, isn't it?
Exactly. Just 1 month in. They allegedly knew the mRNA injection did not actually stop COVID transmission.
Okay, stop there for a second. If that finding is accurate, the implication is huge, right?
It's massive. Our sources argue that everything that followed, the mandates, people losing jobs, school closures, military requirements, the whole two-tier society idea was potentially based on a premise about efficacy that Pfizer itself allegedly knew wasn't true.
And there was another kicker in there too, wasn't there, about side effects?
Yes. The sort of aha moment, according to the documents, was that the most common side effect reported from getting vaccinated was, it was allegedly getting COVID itself.
That certainly challenges the narrative we all heard. But it wasn't just about efficacy, was it? The documents apparently revealed something about where the injection material went in the body.
That's right. What the researchers analyzing them called a biodistribution shock. We were generally told, the material stays put right there in the deltoid muscles.
Yeah, stays in the arm.
That was the common belief. But the analysis indicates Pfizer knew this wasn't the case. The documents reportedly show that within just 48 hours, the components—
Which components are we talking about here?
things like the spike protein, the mRNA itself, The lipid nanoparticles, those are the little fat bubbles carrying the mRNA.
Okay.
And polyethylene glycol. These materials apparently biodistributed. They traveled to major organs all through the body.
Wow. So not staying put at all. Which organs are mentioned?
The reports mentioned the liver, adrenals, spleen, the lymphatic system, and crucially, the ovaries in women.
The ovaries. Okay.
And it didn't stop there. They also allegedly crossed the blood-brain barrier.
Into the brain.
Yes. And maybe even more concerning, the experts analyzing this couldn't find any clear mechanism described for these materials to actually leave the body.
Meaning that they could just build up.
Implying they could accumulate over time. The reports even mentioned the potential for fully blocked ovaries after just the first booster, based on this accumulation shown in the document.
The potential long-term impact of that is significant. And with this stuff traveling everywhere, what did the documents say about adverse events, side effects?
Well, the scale described is staggering, referred to as a tsunami of adverse events. Pfizer reportedly had to hire, get this, 2,400 full-time staff members.
Just to process the report.
Just to process the serious adverse event reports coming in. And this was early on. Between November 2020 and February 2021, they tallied over 42,000 serious adverse events.
42,000. And we're not just talking about fever and chills here, are we?
No, absolutely not. That was the public message. But the documents apparently detail much more. The most common reported side effects were, number 1, myalgia, that's muscle pain.
Okay.
Number 2 was joint pain, suggesting, inflammation. And number 3, as we mentioned earlier, was allegedly COVID itself.
But those are the common ones. What about the more catastrophic serious effects?
The reports detail a really concerning range across major body systems. Heart damage, for instance. Myocarditis, pericarditis, even aortic problems. Then severe blood issues, things like thrombocytopenia, clots forming in the lungs, in the legs, which aligns with the fact that lipid nanoparticles are known to have clotting potential.
Right.
Neurological events, too. The lipid nanoparticles allegedly strip the myelin sheath from nerves. That's the insulation around them.
Which could lead to...
Well, reports included tremors, Guillain-Barré syndrome, dementias, even epilepsy-type seizures, also autoimmune disorders, kind of lupus-type conditions, and extensive eye damage, including reports of blindness.
And were deaths reported?
Yes. The documents recorded 1,200 deaths in just those first 3 months, recorded by doctors who had concerns about causality, about the link to the injection.
1,200 deaths in 3 months.
And reportedly, half of the serious liver and stroke adverse events, including some of those deaths, happened within 48 hours of the injection.
This sounds incredibly serious for adults. What about kids, minors? Did Pfizer know about risks to them early on?
This is one of the most unsettling parts, according to the analysis. Pfizer allegedly knew by April 2021 that minors were being injured.
April 2021, what kind of injuries?
Specifically myocarditis and pericarditis, so serious heart damage in young people.
And the analysis suggests they knew this, but what happened?
Well, the allegation, based on the document analysis, is that a cover-up occurred. The FDA, CDC, Dr. Walensky reportedly knew. Even the Israeli Ministry of Health apparently tried to warn the Biden administration.
Tried to warn them. And instead of a public warning or pulling it for kids?
Instead, reportedly, a 17-page redacted document was issued. Essentially, a script, our sources say, to spin a cover-up.
A script?
Yeah. And this was apparently followed by a TikTok campaign actively encouraging minors to get vaccinated, even with this alleged known risk of potentially deadly heart damage.
And is anything happening with that now?
Well, Senator Ron Johnson is reportedly using the work done on these documents to try and unredact those 17 pages to, shed light on what exactly was allegedly covered up.
Okay, let's shift focus slightly, but it connects back. A particularly striking aspect uncovered seems to be around reproductive damage.
Yes. This was quite unexpected, according to the researchers. They noted the Pfizer documents showed almost nothing about respiratory issues, which you'd expect for COVID, right?
Right, it's a respiratory virus.
Instead, they described an obsessive 360-degree focus on ruining human reproduction. That's a direct quote from the analysis.
Ruining human reproduction. That's incredibly strong language. What did that focus include?
Studies looking at everything: sperm, fallopian tubes, eggs, placentas, fetuses in the womb, the birth process itself, even lactation, breastfeeding.
And the aha moment here was the question of why, wasn't it?
Exactly. The reports highlight this question. Why would they be studying, for example, male vaccinated rats mating with unvaccinated females and then sacrificing them to look at their sex organ cells? for what was supposed to be a respiratory infection. It seemed incongruous.
That is a really critical question. Connecting back to the biodistribution you mentioned earlier, how did this allegedly affect ovaries and placentas?
Well, the documents reportedly reiterated that accumulation of the industrial fat, the polyethylene glycol, in women's ovaries, potentially leading to blocked ovaries over time.
Okay.
And for placentas, the lipid nanoparticles allegedly crossed the placenta, and they were reportedly causing calcifications.
Calcifications, what does that do?
It basically hinders the flow of nutrients and oxygen to the baby. It impairs the placenta's function.
And are there real-world reports that seem to align with this?
Our sources cite independent reports from midwives. They're apparently seeing babies being born early because the placentas are impaired, describing them as flat or literally falling apart during delivery.
Which can cause problems for the mother, too.
Yes, leading to maternal hemorrhage or retained placenta. And overall, maternal fetal mortality in the West is reportedly up by 40% since the injections began, according to these analyses.
40%? That's a huge increase. What about effects on sperm or on babies developing in the womb?
For baby boys in utero, the lipid nanoparticles allegedly cross the membrane around their tests if the mother was vaccinated.
Okay.
And they reportedly degrade the Leydig and Sertoli cells. These are basically the factories for male hormones. The long-term impact on their fertility, on their normal male development, well, it's unknown.
And for men who took the vaccine?
An andrology report found within the documents allegedly confirmed the injection killed sperm and reduced their motility, their ability to move.
Killed and reduced motility.
Yes. And there was a really striking warning given to male participants in the study itself.
What was the warning?
They were reportedly warned not to have intercourse with unvaccinated women of childbearing age. And if they did, they had to use 2 reliable forms of contraception.
2 forms. Why? How did Pfizer define exposure?
This is quite revealing. Pfizer allegedly defined exposure to the vaccine not just as getting the shot, but also including skin contact, breath, and body fluids, like semen.
Skin contact, breath, semen. That's quite broad.
It is. And anecdotally, there are reports mentioned of women experiencing severe cramps after intercourse with vaccinated husbands.
What about pregnancies that occurred during the study?
This is another area flagged as problematic. Out of 270 vaccinated women who became pregnant during the study, the records for 234 of them were reportedly lost.
Lost. 234 out of 270.
That's what the analysis states, which, the reports note, is illegal in clinical trials. You can't just lose patient outcome data like that.
So what happened to the ones whose records weren't lost? The remaining 36?
Of those 36 women whose outcomes were recorded, over 80% allegedly lost their babies.
Over 80% pregnancy loss. And Pfizer allegedly knew this.
That's the claim based on the documents. Which leads us to what our sources call a truly horrifying document. The Pregnancy and Lactation Report.
Okay, tell us about this specific report.
It was apparently an 8-page document prepared specifically for the White House and given to Dr. Walensky and the FDA in April 2021.
April 2021 again. Same time they allegedly knew about heart issues in minors.
Exactly. And this report meticulously documented what it called a menstrual catastrophe. It had charts showing 15,000 women bleeding daily after the injection, 10,000 having 2 periods a month, 7,500 having no periods at all, potentially total infertility.
15,000 bleeding daily.
Yes. It also documented really unusual bleeding, 10-year-old girls bleeding, 85-year-old women bleeding post-menopause, women hemorrhaging, passing large clots.
It sounds like chaos for women's cycles. What about the lactation part, the impact on babies?
This is maybe the hardest part to discuss.
Yeah.
The report allegedly showed experimentation on at least 3 babies, resulting in their death.
Experimentation leading to death. How?
It described babies nursing from vaccinated mothers who then experienced severe symptoms: vomiting, edema, swelling, fever, failure to thrive. They were inconsolable.
Oh my God.
One specific case allegedly detailed a baby going into convulsions after nursing from a vaccinated mom, being rushed to the ER, and dying of multi-organ system failure.
What was the proposed mechanism for this? How could breast milk be harmful?
Well, breast milk is made from components of lymph and blood. The analysis suggests the milk effectively became poisoned milk, containing lipid nanoparticles and polyethylene glycol from the vaccinated mother. Pfizer allegedly knew this.
And did this affect breastfeeding overall?
Reportedly, yes. Breastfeeding rates apparently dropped significantly, from around 34% down to 14%. The source material describes this as potentially poisoning a generation's first experience of human intimacy.
Were there also deaths reported in utero in this specific report?
Yes. 2 babies reportedly died in utero. And Pfizer's own conclusion, allegedly stated in the document, was that they died due to maternal exposure to the vaccine.
Maternal exposure to the vaccine, yet just days later.
Yes. Just 3 days after this report was allegedly delivered to Dr. Walensky, she reportedly stood up at a White House press conference and told the American public, quote, "There's no bad time to get your COVID mRNA injection," saying it was fine before, during, or after pregnancy.
The discrepancy there is stark. What about the broader demographic impact? Are we seeing fallout in birth rates?
It seems so. According to some analyses, mathematician Igor Shudov looked at government databases from over 20 nations. His analysis reportedly shows a 13–20% drop in live births in highly vaccinated nations.
13 to 20% drop.
Yes. In Europe, that translates to an estimated 1 million missing babies. And it's not just one analysis. Studies from Canada, the Czech Republic, and elsewhere are reportedly confirming a dramatic drop in live births.
And confirming issues with female fertility.
Yes, reports allegedly show vaccinated women losing their eggs and having reduced fertility. Iceland is cited as an example now, below replacement level fertility, around 1.5 live births per couple, facing potential extinction if trends don't reverse.
So we've laid out the what and the when based on these document analyses. Now, the really tough question, the why. Dr. Wolf, our source for much of this analysis, argues this can't just be explained away simply.
Right. She argues that the scale of this, the nature of the findings, it doesn't fit a simple narrative of corporate greed or moving too fast or just, mistakes.
What's her reasoning there?
Her logic, as presented, is this. If it was just about greed or an accident, surely the vaccine would have been pulled or at least significantly restricted within the first few months. Given the alleged early knowledge of deaths, lack of efficacy, serious side effects,
and the pre-existing knowledge about the components.
Exactly. Lipid nanoparticles, she points out, were known to pose risks to human fertility as far back as 2017, according to existing literature. Yet they were used in this mass campaign.
So if not greed or accident, what conclusion does she draw from her analysis of these documents?
Based on this alleged prior knowledge, the scale of the reported harm, and the continuation of the program, she concludes, reluctantly she says, that this constitutes mass murder.
That's an incredibly strong term.
It is. And numerically, given the billions injected worldwide, she calls it the greatest crime against humanity in recorded history. Again, that's her conclusion based on her team's analysis of the Pfizer documents.
And she takes it even further, doesn't she, speculating about motive?
Yes. She puts forward what she terms a bioweapon hypothesis. It's important to stress this is her speculation based on connecting dots she sees in the data and external information.
Okay, what's the evidence she presents for that speculation?
She points to two main things. First, an SEC filing from 2021. It allegedly shows a legal agreement between BioNTech, that's Pfizer's partner, described as a German-Chinese company in this context, and Fosun Pharmaceuticals, which is linked to the Chinese Communist Party.
And what was this agreement for?
It reportedly involved producing 1 billion doses of the mRNA injection, specifically for internal consumption in Western Europe and North America. Meanwhile, China used a different, more traditional vaccine domestically.
So made in partnership with a Chinese entity, but deployed in the West.
That's the allegation. And crucially, the agreement supposedly stipulated that the intellectual property, the IP, for the injection would be transferred to China, the state, not a specific company.
Okay, that's the first piece. What's the second?
The second is what she describes as targeted deployment, based on the adverse event data in the documents. The side effects weren't randomly spread, she argues.
How so? Where were they concentrated?
According to her analysis of the Pfizer data, the vast majority of serious adverse events were reported in key Western democracies. Over 42,000 in the U.S. alone, then Germany, France, Britain, Italy, Spain, Greece, kind of in order of political or population influence.
And outside of those countries?
The other 52 countries in the dataset combined accounted for only about 7,000 adverse events. So a huge disparity. She also notes that factors like DNA contamination or even temperature, apparently the materials coalesce, clump together at room temperature, could easily manipulate the impact or damage potential of different batches.
Okay, so that's the speculation on the why from that source. This brings us inevitably to issues of trust, accountability. What happens next? There's been controversy in Europe, right?
Yes, particularly involving Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission.
Yeah.
She allegedly refused to release text messages related to vaccine procurement.
Even when asked by authorities?
Despite admonishments, yes, and even a court ruling suggesting she violated EU treaties by withholding them. And, as the reports point out, deleted texts are often recoverable anyway.
There was also a personal story from an MEP, wasn't there?
Yes, quite poignant. An MEP shared being pregnant twice during the rollout, being told the vaccines were safe, taking 2 shots, and now seeing this data, expressing deep regret and realizing the audacity of the official advice given the alleged knowledge about fertility in babies.
And the long-term effects on those children.
Exactly. Might not be known for 10, 15 years, maybe longer.
So what does all this do to scientific research, to public trust?
It creates huge challenges. Pharma companies allegedly fund so much research at universities, it makes truly independent investigation difficult.
And trust in public health institutions.
In the U.S. especially, our sources say it has completely collapsed. Many people are avoiding conventional doctors altogether. You see a boom in integrative medicine as a result.
And potentially many people are suffering without knowing the cause.
That's a major concern raised. That many people have symptoms consistent with what Dr. Wolf's team identifies as mRNA injection injuries, but neither the patient nor their doctor connects the dots.
Is there any anecdotal advice circulating on how to address potential damage?
Dr. Wolf mentions suggesting to her own loved ones things like focusing on detoxification, supporting the lymphatic and circulatory systems, adopting an anti-inflammatory lifestyle, basically helping the body cope with and potentially clear the alleged damage.
We also touched on neurological events, dementia. That's come up anecdotally too, hasn't it?
Yes, disturbingly so. Many reports of older people experiencing cognitive decline, even dementia, since the vaccines.
And the mechanism there, again, involves those lipid nanoparticles.
Allegedly crossing the blood-brain barrier, yes. And Dr. Wolf cites the work of Dr. Michael Nels, a German neuroscientist. His research suggests the combination of intense propaganda, constant message repetition, and induced fear can physically damage and rewire the brain.
Actual brain damage.
Damage particularly to the prefrontal cortex, which handles impulse control, memory, higher reasoning. He calls it the indoctrinated brain. Potentially leading to binary thinking, black and white views, problems with impulse control, emotional deregulation, even losing parts of your own memory, replaced by the propaganda narrative, making it incredibly hard to process conflicting information.
Are there potential ways to address that kind of damage?
It's complex. Anti-inflammatory approaches might help the physical aspect. Trauma-based therapies might address the psychological rewiring, maybe even ways to rebuild the myelin sheath. But it would require significant political and institutional will to even investigate properly.
This all raises huge questions about the state of journalism, doesn't it? The ability to get this information out.
Our sources paint a grim picture, especially in Europe and Britain. Journalism is described as being in a catastrophic state. Censorship, difficulty uncovering truth, careers getting shut down.
Like Mark Stein in the UK.
Exactly. His show was reportedly canceled after having Dr. Wolf on. She argues this isn't just about the injection anymore. It's become an attack on liberty itself, particularly in Europe, the birthplace of free speech.
And her proposed solution.
She argues for sovereignty, for power returning to nations, to citizens making laws through their parliaments, rather than direction coming from unelected supranational bodies.
And finally, there was a rather dark take on the idea of lessons learned from COVID.
Yes, according to one MEP involved, the official Lessons Learned from COVID committee in the EU Parliament wasn't really about learning from mistakes at all.
What was it about then?
Reportedly, it was more focused on where did we fail to get the people to simply do what they were told.
Wow.
The committee's final report allegedly just repeated all the original narratives, ignored the contrary evidence presented, and even openly mocked those trying to raise concerns about adverse events.
So the description was that this whole period was a kind of test.
Described as a test balloon, yeah. A test to see if freedom, democracy, the rule of law could be effectively abolished in Western democracies, turning fundamental rights into privileges the government grants based on your behavior.
And the call to action from that perspective.
That people need to remember they are the bosses. They need to wisen up, take charge of their democracies, get involved locally, and refuse to be lied to anymore.
So wrapping this up for you, our listener, we've covered an incredible amount today unpacking these alleged revelations from the Pfizer documents, from fundamental questions about efficacy and where these materials went in the body,
to the deeply concerning reports of reproductive and neurological damage, and the really unsettling political implications for trust, for accountability, for democracy itself.
Understanding this information, or at least being aware of these claims and the documents they stem from, seems crucial. Crucial for making informed decisions about your own health, and maybe for thinking about how we safeguard our rights in what feels like an increasingly complex world.
It definitely gives you a lot to think about.
It really does. So here's a final provocative thought to leave you with. If this analysis is accurate, if so much information could allegedly be deliberately suppressed or distorted, and if the very institutions we rely on to protect public health and uphold democracy are implicated, what responsibilities do we now bear? As informed citizens, what's our role in trying to shape a future where events like this, as the sources claim they happened, can never again occur?